charging you this idea of the romantic. But today we are looking at a very specific form of art, and this is called the romantic landscape. You know what romantic means. Romantic is a way of thinking and reacting to the world that is particularly seen in poetry, some Gothic novels, and of course painting. These are the three technologies of the time. Long before there was the cinema, long before there was any kind of photography, this was the manner in which these things were expressed. Romantic landscapes were very popular in the late 18th and the early 19th century. And this was a period of great canvases being painted. They were very popular. People went to public galleries to see them because they expressed a new way of looking at the world. When we speak of romantic landscapes, there are two words that come to mind. The first is the pastoral. The pastoral is from the Latin word pastore, which means shepherd or peasant, a man or a woman who lives in the country and works within nature with animals. The Romantics believed that if they went into the country and showed nature in a beautiful, calm, and serene manner with people who were naturally connected to it, that this was a very pure and more healthy and serene way of living their lives. Romanticism is a kind of escape. At this time, in this period, there were the Napoleonic Wars, there was the Industrial Revolution, and so art was a way of taking people away into a fantasy world, a world of beauty and quiet. Now, landscapes had this quality. They were called pastoral because they looked at people working in their natural environment. The Romantics believed, as artists, that these people that they showed working in these beautiful settings were very happy and content people. They were unspoiled. They didn't have the stress and the problems of people who worked in factories and lived in cities. So the first part of the seminar looks at painters who paint both the pastoral, and then we're looking at a second idea, one that you're familiar with, I believe, from your textbook, called the sublime. The sublime is the other half of the romantic landscape. There were two ways of looking at nature. The sublime is quite a different feeling. It's a feeling of wonder, it's a feeling of magical emotion. When you look at things that are sublime, you forget to think. And all you do is feel things. And the feelings you have come because you're looking at a landscape that is very dramatic. It has a huge size to it. It is often in disturbance. There are storms. There may be battles. There may be terrible things happening. And you look at it and you feel not only this sense of surprise and wonder, but you also feel fear. Now, this is not a real fear. Romantic fear also has an element of being thrilling. Like when we go and see an action movie, we know when we see Skyfall or we see 007 that this is a kind of romantic way of looking at the world. It's filled with action and turbulence. It's filled with danger. But at the same time, we enjoy it. It gives us a thrill. So the Romantic imagination looked at landscape in this way. One was for calmness, and the other one was for fearful wonder. So, in the landscapes you are about to see, you're going to be introduced to a number of particular artists. Two English artists, a very famous French artist, famous German artist. And then we're going to end with a Canadian artist. I am from Canada, I speak English, so I will present to you some images from a Romantic painter who was living at the same time as the Europeans, but was in North America, because the same sentiment, the same idea, went over into both Canada and the United States. Let's begin with our first painter. You should write down the names from the screen. The first one is Jon Constable. These are his dates. He was an Englishman. And his particular way of looking at the world in the Romantic idea was pastoral. He painted beautiful pictures of countrysides that were ideal. They looked at the serenity of life. So take a look at this very first picture. You'll see what I mean. Here in all beautiful color is the English landscape. You can see that they have calm waters, beautiful green fields. It's a picture in the summertime. Notice the beautiful clouds in the background. Many Romantic painters loved in landscape painting to show us the weather. The weather is an important part. Here the weather is calm. These perhaps are clouds in the summer that will bring rain. You can also see in the foreground a young boy sitting on a horse, and he's helping his brother or someone else, perhaps a fellow worker, to pull this little boat down the river. You can see that it's a very simple scene. The people are not suffering. There is a calmness, there are lovely shadows, there's lovely sunlight. People who would look at this would feel very serene. They would feel happy. They would feel that life had a beauty to it. It's Romantic in the sense that it shows nature in a beautiful, picturesque fashion. Look at the trees on the right side. Look at all the use of the green and the moving river. The next picture that Piero will show you is another version. Here, Constable shows us a house. The trees have been moved over to the left side of the picture. You will notice, too, that the water is still very calm and beautiful. Oh, here comes some more.
Sorry for disturbing.
Come in.
So late.
At nature in a very, it's beautiful color now.
Yeah,
See,
now it's perfect.
It's perfect. Now you can actually see the painting. Mr. Constable, as you can see, has painted the beautiful clouds again. We see people calmly working in the water. Now, one of the visual ideas that I want you to notice in this presentation is water. Because we are going to show you how the Romantic painter used water in particular. Here, the water is calm. It's not very deep. It nourishes the landscape. There's all of this positive feeling, this serenity. What makes this picture Romantic, of course, is the combination of the composition. This beautiful, rich sky, the rich trees, and very smooth lines going through the middle to give this feeling of calmness. We move on. Here, Mr. Constable shows us another Romantic landscape. You will notice in it that there are some animals. They're domestic animals, not wild ones. To the left, you will see a couple who are standing. They are observing this wonderful building. The building is a great church. It's Salisbury Cathedral. This is an example of man's greatness, his creativity. And you will notice that Constable, however, puts the church way in the background. He still has his wonderful clouds, but the church is framed by a set of trees. And these trees are particularly romantic in the sense that they capture our vision. They frame the tower. The trees themselves look like they're bigger than the church. This is a playing with perspective and composition. This was deliberately done by the Romantics. This was part of the idea of showing the countryside as a place of calm, thoughtfulness, no danger, Nothing that would be threatened. This is the pastoral idea. As we move on, you will notice, however, that the pastoral begins to change. Here's another typical romantic painting. Broad, open spaces, the notion of freedom and light, the idea that the figures, the people in it are much smaller. They're reduced in the landscape because the artist wants us to see the wonder and the beauty of these calm skies. So the emphasis is always in romantic landscapes, first with the landscape themselves, but also skies and water. Now we go to another painter, very famous English painter, J.M.W. Turner. These were Englishmen who lived in England during the Napoleonic Wars. They were painting in a landscape that was very calm. It wasn't in the turbulence of France and the Italian campaign, certainly. However, these romantic painters were very aware of the fact that the country they lived in was going through a revolution as well. It was the Industrial Revolution. Cities were changing, people's lives were being transformed. The influence of the French Revolution had brought all kinds of new ideas. Now, as we look at Turner, you're going to notice something. He gradually goes from showing this pastoral, calm, beautiful country scenes, and he moves into the sublime, in the sense that nature suddenly changes. And I want you to notice particularly water, because the water is the key element. As we go through his pictures, we begin with this lovely picture of dawn. Here is the day beginning. Notice that the animals all seem to be nicely arranged in very calm compositions. The sun is filling the sky with warmth. Here we have safety. Here we have serenity. As we move into the next picture, Mr. Turner shows us something very similar to what we've seen in Constable. Notice that the bottom of the picture is purely pastoral. Here are wild animals that are calmly eating and feeling safe even within the confines of the city. But the city itself is way off in the distance. You can hardly tell that there is a city there except for the two towers of the Greenwich Village Observatory, which he painted at that period. Notice the calm river going through the green landscape. This is still the notion of the pastoral. And once again, as we've seen with all romantic painters, the sky is a very important indicator of the emotion. Notice that this is a calm sky, essentially. It all looks as if the clouds are in some kind of order. Now you're going to start seeing a change. We see things that are becoming